Hi students, and welcome to another lecture video here in our C# beginner course. In the first video we took a look at what C# is, what .NET is, and how we can generate and edit our very first program in C#. Now we are going to install more professional tools. Tools are super important for developers. Many developers have their favorite tools and they really make sure that they always have their environment, their tool settings just exactly as they like to have them. Some even create tools that are a little bit unusual, but they simply love it. It's a really passionate relationship that many developers have with their tools. And today I'm going to show you the tool set that we are going to use in this course. Try it, give it a chance, personalize it so you really love the tools that you use, and over time I'm pretty sure that you will make some adjustments and make it personal so that you have the greatest environment for yourself to build awesome programs. Let's start with a tool which is, strictly speaking, not directly for C# coding, but it is important. I want to stress this topic a little bit because you are going to be programmers, and programmers are responsible for keeping their code secure. And nowadays, modern software development uses a lot of online platforms. Let me give you some examples. Things like GitHub or Azure DevOps or Bitbucket and many other environments you maybe not have even heard of. You are going to use them. You are going to love them. You are going to build software with them. And for all these environments, you need identities. You need to have users and passwords and so on. And as a developer, it's your responsibility to keep your identity secure. That is really, really important. And I want to give you some advice how you should go over that as a professional developer. And we all want to be professional developers, don't we? First, use single sign-on wherever possible. What does that mean? Create a single identity for yourself based on a Google account, a Microsoft account, a GitHub account, or any other identity provider that you first trust, and second, that is widely supported. And wherever possible, link your online identities to this single sign-on. In practice, you will probably not have a single sign-on for all your online activities, but you should try to have only a few of them. And whenever possible, try to link online platforms that you use for codings to this single identity. And then keep this single account very secure. Use a strong password. Use multi-factor authentication. That means that you let yourself send an SMS, a short message service, for instance, or a push message to your smartphone. So you do not just need your username, your password, but you also need your phone, for instance, to prove that you are who you claim to be. So single sign-on and multi-factor authentication is super important. When you have this option, use it. Sometimes you don't have this option. Some important platforms, important for us as developers, they still force you to create user and password. Or maybe they give you some kind of access key or some other kind of secret that you have to keep, as the name suggests, secret, in order to prove your identity. The question is, what should these secrets be? Where can you store them? Unfortunately, many end users make the mistake that they use the same password on all their online portals. You, as a professional developer, should not do that. What you should do instead, you should use a so-called password keeper. Password keeper means that you have an encrypted database of secrets, passwords, keys, and things like that. And then you have a single password, a strong password, a password that you really protect, that you tell nobody. And with this single password, you get into the encrypted password database, and there you can look up all your different identities. That gives you the possibility to create a strong, different password for every platform that you use. You never reuse an existing password in two different online platforms that you use for doing your job, for doing your schoolwork, for doing your development work. You always create new passwords and you store them in the password keeper. So this is important for me, and I encourage you to try a password keeper which is called KeePass. You have the link here. It's free. You can download it for free. It's decently secure. That's perfectly fine. If you happen to already use a different password keeper, that's perfectly fine for me, as long as you use a password keeper. That's the important message for you here. First thing, password keeper. So pause the video, install KeePass or any other password database that you want, and resume once you did that. Next one, we are going to use Visual Studio Code for our development in this course. The abbreviation is VSCode. So when I talk about VSCode, I mean Visual Studio Code. Visual Studio Code, VS Code, is cross-platform, and that's an important point here. You can use it on your Mac, on Linux, or on Windows, and on many other platforms. It's also available, at least in a limited way, directly inside the browser. The core of VS Code is open source software. It's maintained primarily by Microsoft, but people from the community can make contributions. This is regularly done. And a beautiful thing when it comes to Visual Studio Code is its extensibility. As a developer, you can make Visual Studio Code your own. You can install a bunch of extensions and tailor it to your specific needs. Well, you might ask yourself at the beginning, you don't know what your needs really are. Don't worry. I will tell you recommended extensions for using VS Code with C#. But over time, experiment. Take a look at what's in the marketplace. All these extensions are for free, or I would say 99% of the extensions are for free. Take a look at YouTube videos, read some blogs, just try things out and make Visual Studio the great tool that you would like it to be. Visual Studio Code works generally very well for C# and .NET, but it's not limited to C# and .NET. You can do web development with TypeScript and JavaScript, you can do Python development, and you can do a lot of development in many other programming languages. So VS Code is a general coding environment, and in this course, we are going to use it for C# and .NET, but keep in mind, once you get better and once you learn more programming languages, you can, for many of these programming languages, come back to VS Code. In fact, many professional software developers all across the world do exactly that. They use VS Code with a bunch of interesting extensions to do their daily professional development work. So, pause this video now. Now it's up to you. Download Visual Studio Code. You can follow the link here to get Visual Studio Code, download Visual Studio Code, and install the software on your computer. Please resume this video once you installed VS Code. Now it's time to extend and customize VS Code. I have collected a bunch of extensions that I personally like very much when I do professional work with VS Code and C#. Here you have a list of recommended extensions. I structured it in multiple buckets. The first one is the must-have bucket. Must-have means that you are required to have these extensions for this course. You have to install them. We are going to use them. Maybe not at the very beginning of the course, but throughout the course. And then I added a bunch of optional extensions. Let me zoom in and tell you a little bit about those. The first one is an optional tool which points out if you do some spell checking mistakes. Maybe you have a typo in a word, and that comes in handy. Your code simply looks more professional if you don't have a lot of spelling mistakes in it. The next one is super important, at least if you ask me. The color theme. Do you want to write code in a more dark theme, or maybe write code in a lighter theme where your background is white or a shade of white? Oh, that's a hard discussion going on between many developers. Some love light themes, some love dark themes. It's really up to you. You can install lots of these color themes in your VS Code environment. You can even create your own color themes if you're really into that. So check out the color themes that I linked here and choose some of them, or select a different one that you find in the marketplace. The next one is evenly important, icons. There are so many icon libraries for VS Code, and they make your VS Code simply a little bit more colorful, more enjoying to work with. So choose an icon pack. I have linked here one icon pack that I particularly like, but choose whatever you want. And the last one is just a tool which comes in handy later on in this course. Trust me, makes sense. Install it if you like. Do you want more? There is a marketplace. I click on this link here. There is a marketplace where you can look through the different extensions of VS Code. You see features extensions and trending extensions and most popular extensions and so on and so on. Just walk around in this virtual marketplace, take a look at the extensions. You will find lots of free extensions and try out whatever you want. So now, again, it's your job. Pause the video and resume the video once you have installed all the extensions mentioned in the previous slide. Now that we have installed VS Code and some extensions, I would like to give you some important tips for working with VS Code. The first one is for your practical work in this course. I would like to encourage you to create a dedicated folder on your computer's hard disk where you store all your exercises that you do in this course. For instance, homeworks or live coding inside the course hours and things like that. Please use, for instance, something like on your C drive HTL, like the name of our school, PRO for programming, or if you use a Linux system, you can use your home directory and create the folder HTL Pro there. How do you create this folder? The easiest thing is to use the, here it is, well-known Windows Explorer on Windows. On macOS, you can use the Finder tool. On Linux, it depends on which Linux you use. You probably also have a File Explorer. So pause the video here and create a new empty folder. And please remember this folder. Whatever you create in this course or for this course goes into that folder. For each exercise that you do, create a subfolder inside of the folder created before. So for instance, 0010 dash and then the name of the exercise, 0020 and dash and the name of the exercise. Come up with a numbering schema, because then you always have a nice ordered list of all your exercises. The low numbers you created first and the high numbers are the more advanced exercises that you created. Now listen closely, this is an important word of warning here. Do not add special characters or spaces, blanks, inside of the names of your folders. It still works, but sometimes some tools have problems with folder names that contain spaces or special characters. So no umlaute and things like that, no other special characters. Stick to the usual 26 lowercase or uppercase characters, maybe a minus, a dash, or an underscore. That's fine, but no additional special characters. No $ or euro sign or some other fancy special characters. Avoid them. That will save yourself a lot of trouble. When you want to work with a folder, imagine that you created a subfolder for a certain exercise that you got from me in this course and you would like to work on it. Then open the folder of the exercise in Visual Studio Code. So, how do you do that? Either you click on File, Open Folder, or you simply use in the start screen the Open Folder button that you see here. There is also a recently used list here on the start screen, and you can also use that one. Let me quickly show you that by opening the folder that I used in the first video where we created our very first application. I will start Visual Studio Code, and it came up on the other monitor, and here it is. Here you see my Visual Studio Code. Let me move my window here, and I can say File, Open Folder. See that one? File, Open Folder. And here I have a list of open folders, and I go here, and this is the folder. If you watched my first video, this is the folder that I used in my first video. So I can hit Select Folder, and now I open the folder. I get asked whether the author of this code can be trusted. In my case, yes, the author can be trusted because I am the author and I trust myself. And you see, now the folder is open. This is how you open it. Okay? Now I can click on the C# program, and here you see this is exactly the code that we have written in the first video. I was successful, exactly what I wanted you to show. Next tip, folder management. Sometimes you have your folder open in Explorer and you would quickly like to open this folder in VS Code. How can you do that? Well, one option is to copy the folder name into the clipboard. You see, in the Windows Explorer, you can simply click in the address bar as shown here in this animated screen here and right-click copy or press Ctrl-C, and then you have the folder in your clipboard. And then you can easily use this folder in Visual Studio Code by selecting File, Open Folder, press Ctrl-V for paste, and then you're done. Sounds complicated? It isn't. Let me show you. I will open my Windows Explorer with the folder that we used in the last exercise. Here is the folder that I used in the last exercise. I click on this address bar up here and I press Ctrl-C for copy or right-click copy. See? Then I launch Visual Studio Code. Let me simulate that by closing the folder. And now I go to File, Open Folder. And here again, I can right-click paste or hit Ctrl-V. And I only have to press Enter twice and everything is okay. There are some shortcuts, and this is for those of you who really want to be productive and fast. I would like to show you some shortcuts how you can make that even faster. Let me show you that. When you install Visual Studio Code, you get asked whether Visual Studio Code should integrate itself in the Windows Explorer. If you checked that box, you can press right-click here in the folder, go to Show More Options if you have Windows 11. If you have an older version of Windows, you see it directly, and here you see Open with Code. You see, I do not need to copy the name of the folder and paste it in Visual Studio Code. I can directly right-click here, press Open in VS Code, and again it's on the other screen. Immediately my folder is open. And the last trick that I want to show you is from the console. Can you remember how we got to the console from the last video? We simply wrote cmd up here, and that gave us the console in the correct folder so we can directly manipulate our program in the console. But what if we are in the console and we don't want to manipulate something here in the console, but we want to simply open up our program in Visual Studio Code? How can you do that? Answer, very simple. You simply type code dot. Dot is the abbreviation for open the current folder. Open the folder where I am currently in. And this is exactly the folder that my program is in. So code dot opens my program in Visual Studio Code. Let me show you that. I press enter. And Visual Studio Code opens on the wrong monitor. I'm very sorry for that. I dragged the window onto the correct one. You see, again, I'm exactly where I want it to be. My program has been opened and I can start writing code. Okay? So these are 3 ways of how to open a folder from Explorer in Visual Studio Code. Remember that? It's really useful. Small tip, sometimes you, for instance, get some code or some files from a colleague, and maybe you got it via an email, or you got it via a USB stick or something, and you would like to add this code file to your project, to your application. Then I think I don't need to demonstrate that live. You see it here in the animated GIF. You can simply drag and drop the file directly from Explorer into Visual Studio Code. That's super useful. Remember that. You do not need to type things or to manually copy things into the folder. You can simply drag and drop files, even folders, directly from a USB stick, from any folder, any drive on your computer, directly into Visual Studio Code. And by dragging it over there, it will be copied into your application. Tip number 3. Tip number 3 is a really, really useful one. It's the command palette. The command palette can be launched with a shortcut, which is Ctrl-Shift-P. I have a secret for you. There is another shortcut which also opens the palette, and it's, in my opinion, easier to remember. It's F1. So if you have function keys on your laptops or on your desktop's keyboard, just press F1 and it will also open the command palette. Now what can you do with the command palette? I have an animated GIF here. You can run any command that Visual Studio Code or any extension supports. You might ask yourself, oh my god, how should I know what commands are available? Answer, practice. I told you in the first video, you simply have to learn and practice and go through Visual Studio Code with open eyes and just watch and see and watch me, watch other developers, and then you will learn a lot of the important commands. Here in this small little thing, I can show you that one. Let me open the folder again. Just to do the demonstration. In this small little example here, I open the palette. You see the palette, I open it with F1. And for instance, if I want to change the color scheme, I type in color. And see here, preferences color theme. Very good. So again, F1, color, enter. And there you see the different colors. And I can now, with the cursor keys, go down through my different color schemes, and I can choose one. Maybe today I like Monokai, for instance, or maybe the red one here. It really depends on my mood or what I like. Just choose the color theme. The important thing here is not the color theme, don't get me wrong. The important thing, remember that, is the command palette in Visual Studio Code, which you open with Ctrl-Shift-P, or with the menu item View Command Palette, or with F1. Don't worry, You will remember that because you will use this command palette over the next few months over and over and over again. You will never ever forget about it anymore. The next tip is about the terminal. So far, I've shown you the CMD terminal, and I have mentioned that there are many additional terminals like the Windows terminal, the Bash shell, and things like that. Many other terminals available, but for now you have learned about CMD. If I run it again, I'm pretty sure you can remember this terminal, and in this terminal we wrote things like .NET -- version. Can you remember the first video? This is how we expressed commands to the so-called operating system. Okay? Now, is there a better way of working with the terminal inside of Visual Studio Code? Definitely there is, because Visual Studio Code has a terminal built in. What you can do is you can launch a new terminal, as you see it here in this animated GIF. You can launch a terminal via terminal, new terminal, and you see the shortcut here. It's Ctrl+Shift+Umlaut O. This is of course for a German keyboard. If you are using a different language keyboard, the shortcut will be different. Then you have to look it up yourself. It's written inside of the menu item, terminal, new terminal. And that gives you, take a look here, if you press new terminal, that gives you the terminal directly inside Visual Studio Code. You do not need to leave Visual Studio Code to interact with the terminal. It's built in, and that's super useful. Remember that. That works on Linux, that works on Windows, that works on Mac OS. It is simply useful on every platform. You will use it very frequently when it comes to C# development. Speaking of keyboard shortcuts are important. They make you so much faster. And over time, you will have lots of keyboard shortcuts in your mind, in your head. You will use them even without recognizing that you just used the keyboard shortcut, because it's so into muscle memory. One great source for keyboard shortcuts is the keyboard shortcut poster. You can click on this link and it will open up a PDF with many different keyboard shortcuts for Visual Studio Code. So what I advise you is print this poster. It's just a A4 page. You can print it at home. Print this poster and put it beside your keyboard. And whenever you do an exercise, try to ignore the mouse as much as possible. Learn to love the keyboard. What I'm not saying, please listen closely, is sit down and learn all the keyboard shortcuts by heart. That's not necessary. For your work, for your kind of working, maybe you need 3, 4, 5, 10, 15 keyboard shortcuts, and by using them over and over again during your exercises, you will remember them automatically. It doesn't pay off sitting down and learning them by heart explicitly. It's not necessary. The things which are useful for you will come automatically over time. Just give it time. It will come. Definitely. My main message here in this tip is try to avoid the mouse over time as much as possible. Keep your hand on the keyboard and learn to get faster using keyboard shortcuts. It's not something that you will master in 2 or 3 days. It's something that needs practice. So don't be frustrated if you simply can't remember 1 or 2 shortcuts. It will come. The next tool that I would like to introduce to you is WinMerge. We are going to use WinMerge every now and then. What is WinMerge all about? It compares files. For instance, maybe I ask you to copy a certain piece of code on a certain file server into our school. And then you have a few days later, you have a new version of your program and you would like to check which lines are different. What did I change? For that, you can use WinMerge. It's not a must-have for this course, but it is a useful tool. So if you want it, pause here, install WinMerge, and resume once you did that. Last but definitely not least, GitHub. GitHub is the home of many of the software products that you use inside of this course. .NET, the code of .NET is stored in GitHub. The code of C#, the C# compiler is stored in GitHub. Visual Studio Code is stored in GitHub. The Linux operating system stored in GitHub. GitHub is one of the largest code repositories in the world and home of the most important open source products that you will use as a developer on a daily basis. And the good news is that GitHub is free for open source developers, and of course it's completely free for you as students and also for me as a teacher. So therefore, we are going to make use of GitHub a lot in this course. Not now. We are not starting with GitHub immediately. We are going to use GitHub in a few weeks. But I ask you to install some tools already today because we are going to need them as I mentioned, in a few weeks. So please do two things now. Pause this video and then first create your own GitHub user. It's free. All you need to have is an email address. So type in your email address when you are asked for it, select a password and put it in KeePass. Can you remember? We already installed KeePass. That's the first thing. That's the first application of KeePass for our course here. So create a GitHub user and remember it, okay? This GitHub user will be important. It will be an important part of your school career here at the HTL. Choose your GitHub name wisely. It will be your GitHub identity over the next years. Yes, you can create a new one, but that would be a pity because then you lose your history as a great developer. You cannot look back what you created in the past, maybe in this course. So think about your GitHub username for a little bit and create a user. And the second thing that I ask you to do is I ask you to install GitHub Desktop. That is a small little tool that works nicely on all the different platforms, and it allows you to easily pull code down out of GitHub onto your computer so we can work on it. So if I give you, for instance, a homework and I tell you that you find the homework on GitHub, you can grab this code from GitHub using GitHub Desktop. It's a very convenient tool. It's free. So this is the next thing that I ask you to install. So pause the video here and come back once you created your GitHub user and downloaded and installed GitHub Desktop. You are back. That means you installed all the necessary software. Your computer is ready for this course. We have all the tools we need, so we are ready to learn how to do coding, how to write software in C#. Thank you very much for sticking with me. Thank you very much for installing all the tools, and remember, mastery comes with practice. So with that, keep on practicing, keep on coding. See you next time.